I just have a few things on our agenda, but I think that there's space to talk about more things and maybe see what else we can do to get this party started. So I was mentioning that Nick has a proposal to implement for a new members dashboard, but she's not here. And I know, I think I'll be able to sync with her later. Maybe we can talk about that next time, or we can look at it just to check it out, or you can look at it. I think it would make more sense to probably talk about it with her since she designed it. But it's up there on the agenda, and it's linked, so check that out. I guess one of the biggest things we would like to talk about, especially since Tam is with us, is the orientation bot that ViViV created, and to maybe figure out the best way to gather that data. I know we had thought maybe putting it in the private Discord server would be a good idea, and then we tried that, but then of course it's probably important to have that data managed in a way that we can parse it and look at it that's more imaginable in a kind of spreadsheet. So I'd love to hear some of your thoughts about that. Tam, do you want to answer to that maybe?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I wrote everything pretty clearly in the ZenHub issue, so everyone should already know my thoughts. But essentially, I think it's interesting for us to have a searchable archive of this data. And I have no technical preference. Vi suggested Airtable, and Vi has never led us astray. So if it's an Airtable, it's an Airtable. I just think the one of the objectives should be we can search it later and do some matching and/or analysis.
Right. So that's great. Another topic about this that maybe you want to chime in on is reformatting the questions that we ask. One thought that I was having after we had sort of designed these was, should they be written in a way where, I'm not sure, I'm not an expert in that, but I'm thinking, should there be one of those questions that actually is more of a multiple choice or something in a way that would make the participants, the contributors, select one of various options so that when that data can be analyzed, it could be sort of divided in a more clean way, if you see what I mean. I'm not sure if that's necessary, but it seems like it might be.
I do have some thoughts I can share before anyone else wants to add. I think that there's two people who are sort of subject matter experts, and the Omega working group could be a group that we could learn from in terms of the kinds of information we want from the token engineering community. They've had a survey, so I would check with Omega. I know SoftGov helped a lot there. And then there's Kelsey, who's a ethnographic researcher, specifically in DAO space. So she might have some interesting input, but I honestly think between Omega Working Group and SoftGov, they can help us with the kinds of questions that we would want to know later. And does anyone else, I don't know if I should pass it, or does anyone want to chime in if they have some thoughts around this too?
Yeah, I would like to know from Transparency also eventually their output regarding this information and the way we are processing and the accessibility to the Airtable link. I don't know if there's any process dedicated for that. Besides that, I do think that it doesn't matter. That at the end of the day, we should keep it in a way that it's simple and effective for someone who is new on the server. And not too complicated, because then it will be a blocker for people if the first thing you ask them is like, oh, I have to think too much to answer these questions. That's why the two questions were like, we just leave it in two questions. One was identity related and the other one was reasoning or motives. And that was something that intrinsically everyone who entered the space will have a reason, and then they will have a name. So that's why at the beginning I thought of keeping it simple. I think what could be interesting to know more in detail is what we do with this data, and what, like from Kelsey and so on, like how we manage this data and for what purpose it is applicable to. That's something I would like some help on.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, regarding transparency, in my opinion, if you let the document open to anyone, just make sure everyone who's putting information there, they know like it's open to everyone, so don't put sensitive information, and yeah, just making people aware like this is open, and yeah, I think that should be cool.
I have a couple of thoughts regarding like the question formats. I'm thinking that maybe we could make some questions that give us more insight while and not being very subjective. Like we could have options for answers. So one of the things that we could do is like, what's your main area where you would like to contribute or something like that, and we have like multiple choice options for that. I think that that can eventually help us narrow down like what would they be interested in. And another thing that we could look into is like, what's your most available time in your own time zone or something like that. Like some which time zone they follow. I think those are the things that can help us in organizing a call with them.
Right.
Yeah, time zone question slip through the cracks. Time zone question, it's a must on this. I think that's something we should add. Yes or yes.
Yeah, I'm a little wary of the idea, though, of asking folks to provide an area, a main area where they'd like to contribute, because I think for orientation, one of the hardest things for folks entering the space is even to know at all where they should be going. They don't know where they want to go. So the best thing we can do is ask them about themselves. But I think it still remains important to speak, as Tam said, with some subject matter experts to find out how we can phrase that in a way that will make collecting the data useful. So these are great ideas. Also, this idea of asking about times, but we also want to be careful about asking for too much information, as we already talked about at the outset, and also in gathering information that's going to need to force us to do organizing where in fact we do want contributors to be able to autonomously enter into spaces on their own. I mean, of course we need to know where they are, but since we're at this time not, like implementing various not yet anyway, various calls or whatever that would accommodate their times. We don't want to sort of spend too much energy on forcing ourselves to be organizing all of the newcomers. But those are really good ideas that we'll have to play around with, I think. Other thoughts? Yeah, go ahead.
No, Jane, would you like to say something? That I saw that you unmute.
No, I mean, I'm just listening in and seeing where I can contribute, but that's all logical. It makes perfect sense. So yeah. So far so good.
I think.
Go ahead, Juan.
Yeah, I think we can mimic. This is a slide document from Index Co-op, and I've been on other DAOs, and there has been a consensus that they have one of the best onboarding processes. So maybe we can take a page out of their book. They show this like, okay, first you learn, then you contribute, and you build trust. Maybe that's a given. But I thought this was a good point to have, like, okay, how much time can you contribute, right? 0 to 5 hours, 6 to 9, 10 to 14, 15. And if we don't show them where they want to go, at least we show them how we're organized, and that will give them an idea as to, I mean, if we show them, oh, part. We show them like, okay, we have like different working groups and how they're assembled, and actually is an issue that I need to dust off and finish like the different working group interrelationships in a diagram. But if we show them how we're organized, maybe they'll get an idea as to where. I mean, the other thing is there are working groups that are not like gravity. We need to explain them what gravity is. Common swarm, what common swarm is. Probably most of them don't have like a straightforward name. So maybe it can be like an organizational chart, and then it describes what each working group is, or actually right here, right? What each working group does, the description, forum post linking, and the steward in charge of the working group. So just a couple of things that probably you're already thinking about, but just thought it would be interesting to explicitly show.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Indexes. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Eduardo.
No, just I was just about to mention that it's interesting the fact that if Nick thought about this member dashboard, and Malmano came also with this idea, I think there is undoubtedly a need for a clearer process for handling this, and I think we can sort of out of this presentation, out of Nick, we can come out with a solution that sort of fits our community in a way that is unique and solves these intricacies. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Vivi.
I was just asking, can someone is there like a proposal for the member dashboard? Is there a forum link for that?
I will send you the link. Bye.
There's no, she didn't post it on the forum, so right now it's in the agenda, and I think I can check. I think I put that on ZenHub. Let me check. No, now I'm getting it confused with what we were talking about yesterday. I think it's actually. So she sent me that privately, and then I put it on the agenda. I think that's.
I just dropped it in our Discord channel, so everyone can look at it right now.
Super duper. Thank you.
Yes, G?
I was just gonna mention that I had jumped in. I had never heard of Index until a few weeks ago, and kind of jumped into their server to see what it was about. And it's an interesting mix of like highly automated onboarding process where it's bots combined with a shared spreadsheet, and you kind of onboard yourself in a way, but it's directed through these automation techniques, and it's interesting. They label you with progressive degrees of familiarity, like a rank of some sort. I think the first one was like bronze owl or something like that, but it's a little bit gamified, but it's obviously popular, and obviously that group is a really large one. So I didn't understand that at the time that I jumped into it, but they are really significant. So yeah, it would be an interesting case study for this process.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I think, and that's great. I'm not familiar with it myself. And I know from our side, we would like to maintain the human connection, but of course what we're doing right now, we do need to make some of it automated just to be able to scale and manage the numbers. So that sounds great. If maybe we can we have to check with Nick, but Manu, your idea sounds great there. Maybe we can sort of work on something like that. This idea of a member dashboard that can bring all that information to it when the new contributors are arriving and not just afterwards, learning about the working groups in process. Go ahead.
Sure. We had a eventual call with Nick and Manu probably to put ideas in common along you, Suga, to see how this idea can be progressed. I don't
Could
know.
you say that again?
Yeah, if we can manage to find a time to
Oh.
sync with Nick
Yeah.
and Manu to
Yeah.
put ideas in common, and or anyone else who wants to join the call, so we
Yeah.
can sort of,
Yeah.
have an actual
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, incidentally, I don't know how quick we can act, but Manu, if you're around, I know that she will be around later today, like in a couple of hours. So maybe we can get some conversation happening on the Communitas chat channel and see if we can sync again later, or if a couple of you can sync. That sounds great.
Regarding, yeah, sorry, I don't know if anyone else wants to say something.
I'll be around. And I heard you were talking about a bot. I don't know if this has been talked about, but on onboarding new users, onboarding is just like sending a message on Discord being like, hey, I'm here to help you. If you have any questions, feel free to message me. I can either answer them or at least point you in the right direction. Cheers. Just a friendly message. And I've been doing that by just going through new users on Discord, the label where it says new users, the category. And that's not very helpful because, I think it's suboptimal. And ideally, if we could have a bot that just, as you join the Discord server, you go into a spreadsheet, and then people who want to onboard new users then just go to the spreadsheet and message the new users, and then just color them out when they've been or depending on where they are in the onboarding, if they've been engaged, if they've been messaged. That's number one. Number two would be maybe if they have been if they have responded, if they answered the questionnaire which we're talking about, or number three, if they already like assigned to an issue, or at least like working with someone who's assigned to an issue. So I don't know if that's already on the table, but I just thought that would make it much easier for people to, instead of just scavenging through the new users and remembering the ones you've messaged, or just, yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes, Manu. Yes, absolutely. So in fact, all of that is, the wheels are turning and have been turning, and it's getting better. So back when, I think since the TEC came about, there was such a spreadsheet for onboarding folks and filling in the boxes. But as you noticed, that's gotten a little bit out of control, because if we can no longer follow every single new person who arrives. And so very recently, Vi did create a bot, which is, I think it's implemented at the moment, just it's only been a few days of what we could call testing, I guess, where we just created a 3-question survey, so to speak. The first being like, who are you? The second being, well, no, I guess the first is, do you want to answer these questions? And then they provide who they are. And then they just provide any extra information about themselves. And then thirdly, they're sent what used to be the welcome message. Well, a new and updated version of the welcome message that I used to send to them, which is currently the pinned message on the orientation channel. So they do receive a little bit of stuff. And then that data is what we were just talking about, where we want that data to go to be useful. And so we need to implement a kind of spreadsheet so that we'll have all of that data. And what you're saying sounds great, so that we'll be able to go in there and then also add the human touch, where of course you can then reach out to different users and so on. And what you mentioned, there at the end, Manu, really struck a chord with me where I realized, yeah, in fact, it does sound great to implement something specifically. This is, I think, on the end of the agenda today about assigning an issue, like figuring out how to get the new members active ASAP. So that sounds great. That sounds like an important path to take.
Since we're discussing where the data should go, I had like a few options, and we could see if we prefer these, or if we want, we could go with a Google spreadsheet. It's just that I'm not a fan of using Google Spreadsheets API. Then it's weird because like you need to link it with your Google account. That's why I don't like doing that usually. So there's some options, and I'll just share my screen and show them. Is this visible?
Yes.
So one of them is Rose. Now it's too expensive to run, so I don't think it's a good option for us. Another one is that we use Notion for this. Notion is a hybrid spreadsheet application. So like it's spreadsheets, but you can do a lot of other things with this. So for example, here I just write down my projects, and this is a spreadsheet, but I could do things like this where I could separate out the data into different according to different filters. One advantage of this is that this doesn't have any costs, and as far as I know, their API is pretty consistent, and I haven't seen it like blank out or have concurrency issues. Concurrency issues are when like two things write different data over database, so that gets confusing for sometimes. But this seems to be working all right, and I think this has enough filters for us to use it the way we would be using a spreadsheet. Yeah, that's one option. Another option is that we use Airtable. It's pretty much like a spreadsheet, but with a few things on top. So this isn't actually a spreadsheet. It's actually a database that gets that appears as a spreadsheet, but it's not actually a spreadsheet in a way of saying. And it also allows you to like do different sorting and separating out the data based on things like this. So for example, these are all the people that we onboarded. We could have a spreadsheet over here, and then we could have this view of a gallery where there's a name for everyone. We could maybe check mark something to see that these people are onboarded and these are not onboarded or something like that. So these are some of our options. But one minus of using this platform that we'd have to use multiple spreadsheets in future, because this has like a limit of 1,000 rows per spreadsheet. So I need to like split up different spreadsheets and use it like that. And a third option is that we maybe split it up a little bit and store the data directly in a database. And whenever we need a spreadsheet, we could you go to a website, you click one button, and it gives you a spreadsheet of that entire data or updates the spreadsheet like that. That is also one option. If we'd like to consider that, because writing directly to a spreadsheet has a few issues. Like the way I run my bots, like I have the code over at GitHub, and whenever I update the code, it gets automatically deployed. Now the problem with using Google's APIs is that they need a file with your credentials and your things that are linked to your Google account in a file inside that code to be used that way. But I don't want to put that on GitHub because that has issues. So either I like purchase a different server and then change my whole deployment workflow, or one thing that I could do is like I make a second application that writes the data from the database to the spreadsheet, and we just store this data in this database. These are some of the options that we could look at.
Regarding the Airtable Notion conversation, I will say It works at the moment. I think that eventually down the road, the scalability of it is tricky, and I will just aim for the simpler Google spreadsheet if it is possible, and if it is not too much trouble, because what I just understood from your explanation is a little bit troublesome running the app through another app to just pick out the information. But for the matter of handling the information, I will use Google Docs or Google Spreadsheet, just because how simple and easy and scalable it is down the road for if you want to filters, if you want to like do coding or want to like put the things in the way you want it or processing information there. I feel it's simpler and it's easier. Airtable sounds good. Notion for me, it's not necessarily a good. It's another tool that we are not implementing very much in the working group, so I don't see it very useful. But Airtable probably is, and for me, Google Docs, it's the other option. Just my feedback.
So one thing we could do this week is that I could work on like two implementations. One is that we write the data to Airtable, and then I set up something that also writes the data to Google Spreadsheets. It won't be direct, but it should work, I think. And then we could see like whichever one is more preferred, we can go along with that.
I don't think we're married to Google Sheets, to be honest. And if it's technically complicated and or disadvantageous and or introduces possible data corruption or what have you, I kind of feel like Airtable we've used in the past, we've used Notion in the past. They're really good platforms. I'm not so familiar with Airtable, but I've come across them being used early on in the TEC. We've had a lot of Airtables and a lot of people in the community. So I guess I wouldn't say we should necessarily decide what the final result is, but I trust that whatever it is that we use, what we just need is a searchable archive, and I think that the person implementing the technical solution is the right person to make the decision.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Vi, you have quite the expertise here, and it sounds like, and this might be one of those down the road kinds of things when you mention holding the data and implementing or creating spreadsheets when needed. That's an interesting idea, but for now we can do what works. But if it sounds like
Another
go ahead.
Another thought I had is would we want to like have this data like arranged in a way that we could sort the data according to the date on which they came into the server? I think that might be something useful because I don't think we'd go through the whole member list. We'd probably go through like who entered the server last week or something like that. We could work on that as well. If that's something that we want, but like if I work on it right now, it would be better to implement it right now than somewhere down the line, because then it's harder to split the data from different sources into.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say that's true.
Yeah.
I would say if we don't, it's very rare. And like other than what we might need for some sort of case study or study of the TEC from a academic standpoint, for the daily operations, for operational work, we probably wouldn't need to look back at the last 1,000, unless we're getting like 1,000 a day, in which case maybe we do. But I would guess it seems feasible right now, and maybe we can address a scaling issue if we hit a scaling issue.
And does Notion have? But Notion doesn't have that barrier, does it? That's just Airtable, right? Is that right?
Yeah, Notion has that barrier, like you could only have 1,000 entries in one table, but that can be easily you could easily get over that, because like you have one workspace and you could have multiple tables in that workspace. So that like we could have like arrange it in a way that all the entries in 1 month go into one table or something like that. But yeah, Notion doesn't have that. We could use Notion too, but it's like also a question of do we want people to be able to edit that data, or we just keep the data there? It's just for viewing, right? We don't want to edit that data.
We might want one or two people to edit it if we want to update a Discord handle or something like that, but not publicly editable. I could see a use case where we might want to edit it.
All right. If it's not publicly editable, then I think we could also like make it consistently work with Google spreadsheets. I just need to figure out a way to have my credentials set up in a way that where I don't have issues with it.
I feel like that would make Eduardo happy because now he's so good with Google Sheets that he doesn't want to use anything else.
I don't know what you're talking about. So regarding this bot, there was also another topic on this, which was the changes for Discord that we were aiming at. First, if we have the announcement for this call. Yes, sorry.
Can I just interrupt? And I have to leave now, but if we could do the outreach to hatchers before this Discord bot changes.
Yes. So do you want to explain yourself?
Sure. So Eduardo and I were chatting earlier around sort of the concept of after Hatch outreach, we knew there would be this need for sort of hatcher relations. And we were talking about like how he can use his background with strategy and communication strategy to put together a roadmap between here and the Commons upgrade of how we can make sure hatchers have the information that they need to know. Specifically, in 2 days or 3 days, there will be a very important vote. And it's important for us to sync really closely with comms on this because comms are doing the wider outreach, the wider publicity of these kinds of things. But in addition to that, we at TEC sort of have a really, especially with all of the hatchers being trusted, we have a one-on-one relationship with almost every single hatcher who's participated. So we want to make sure that we reach out to the people who are involved early on in the process and will have an interest in voting and would probably feel very disappointed if the vote happens without them even being aware that it took place. So I'm asking him to coordinate a communication about the 75% restoration of deleted governance rights so that we can make sure that we reach out to all of the hatchers ideally. Comms, I think, will throw a wide net, but hatcher relations should be more like, hey, we talked about this a few months ago, and I want you to know that the vote is happening here on this date. So Eduardo is going to be putting that together. And starting today, I updated the forum. I updated the old threads that were related to this on the forum, just so people who may be alerted that way have some awareness. But I really think we owe it to the hatchers, especially the ones that were really involved in this, to tap each one on the shoulder and be like, hey, we know you're head deep in your project and you're probably not seeing our Twitter or our forum or our Discord, but if this is something you might want to vote on. That's all I wanted to say.
Great. That sounds great. Go ahead, Eduardo.
Yeah, so we will do a similar process than we did before. My suggestion before was since we will probably do a bunch of other outreach down the line, so we will use the spreadsheet that we were using with the hatchers and the links, and then I will add columns for every outreach, so we can have a sort of a transparency checking on if people reply, if people didn't reply, or they are aware of we did communicate with them, or we had a missing in. So I will share the link to this document probably privately in case I don't know if anyone wants to help with this, but I will share the link. So what we have done all the time this with the outreach. We basically, if you know someone from that list, you put your name on it, and in case you want to do the outreach, and you adapt the message to your own style or your own way or your own relationship with that person, and then that message gets sent, and that's basically it. They will probably get back at you with some question regarding, what is the proposal about, or where is usually the same easy questions that they ask because they don't read or they don't have the time, or they just want like a small summary that is usually in the message that you send, but sometimes question comes around. But yeah, so I feel that these outreaches will be part also of Communitas a spectrum of actions. So if anyone wants to help, it's more than welcome.
Sounds great. Thank you. Thank you, Tam. Thank you, Edo.
Yeah, and I'm sorry I have to leave now, but thanks so much for letting
That's
me
all
join.
right. Thanks for joining. See you later.
Bye.
Thank you, Tim.
Okay, so I guess where did we leave off? Vi is going to implement the spreadsheet in using the tool that you see fit. And we are just going to check in, do some advice process with subject matter experts just to make sure that the questions, the design of the bot is the best it can be. And so moving on. Right, so
Yeah.
go ahead.
So since Vi came back, since we're in Discord, I wanted to know, Vi, if there was a reminder for the call, for Communities call active, if there was a reminder for the TAC launch call active. Just basically if those two things are implemented or they need to be implemented, or what information you need for that to happen, and then to do the change of changing the information, just a little bit of rearrangement on the menu on the left of the Discord to go below onboarding and changing the name of onboarding to community kind of thing. I think that was the agreement in the last call. But yeah, so that was the questions. Bye.
So I need to add the reminders for this. The TC launch and the Communitas working group call, right? I'll work on it. I just need the data we want the bot to post, and yeah, that's all I need.
Perfect. And do you have privileges to change the menu on the left to just rearrange submenus?
Yeah. What do you want to rearrange?
Suga, do you remember the to change the title of onboarding to community, and then the menu that says support going under the community menu. Does that make sense? Is that correct, Suga? I'm not. You're muted.
I'm just nodding and repeating. Yes, correct. That's correct. Yeah, I think that's right.
Is this all right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, that's correct. And then ideally, all the orientation data, shall we leave it on information, or the orientation data should be on community? I think information is the right way. And then exactly, just like it is. Take a look, Suga, if you think that's fit. It's now changed on your left side. Thank you. Bye.
Community support. Oh yeah, great.
Perfect. It was just
what do you think what if server setup was at the end of everything? What does anybody feel about that?
Yeah, next to just before archive.
Yeah, wouldn't that make more sense?
Yeah.
Seems like we need more information
Up.
Like the regular stuff that we use more should be. Okay.
Thank you, Mike.
Vi's fixing this faster
go.
than I can even speak about it. It seems.
Thank you.
Okay, super. That's good. Yeah. Chat channels and scooting it down. Server setup. Okay, so let's see. Meanwhile, so that takes care of that. Community call slides. I think there's a couple things here on the agenda that are always going to be on the agenda, such as making sure we update the slides. Yeah. And we have on there daily checking on platforms. as well, which it sounds like, Manu, for example, you've been out there looking around and checking in with the various channels, specifically in the new arrivals on the bot log and in orientation, and now in Communitas, although Communitas, I don't know that new people would be aware of that yet. But in any case, checking out, popping around the community. So those are important to keep doing. For orientation, so we talked about, Eduardo, are you still able to do that this week? Or is that or anybody else who wants to be a part of that?
Regarding orientation, there is this key thing where I encourage everyone in this call, and I think there should be also, I forgot about this, but there should be a reminder also for orientation call if there is not. And it could be interesting if we can target one of these reminders specifically for new members category. I don't know if that's possible, but besides that, what it is nice when orientation calls is when people who are not new also join. The last time, Manu and Nate joined also the call, so it was really nice. We had two people that were new to the space, and they had a very specific aim to know more about the cultural build, and one has a very specific interest in learning about augmenting bonding curve. He entered to know more about that. So the more the merrier. The more the people who joins the orientation call who are part of the community, it makes the whole thing more welcoming. Also, I cannot stretch it more. Letting people know that the TEC Lounge exists on Friday, 5 p.m. It's, for me, something that we should emphasize. This possibility of interactions besides work. We had one where Vi and Juanca joined last Friday. So it could be ideal if you guys, everyone here on this call, transparency and so on, if you are in another call with someone else and you just see that they want to know more about the community, tell them to also join the TEC Lounge call, Fridays, 5 p.m. CET. So that's
great. Yeah. Or when we have these calls and folks want to keep talking about something, it's like, carry it on, bring it to the lounge. That's great.
Yeah.
Great idea.
So regarding timing, I can still do orientation. Like that I have usually booked 5 p.m. onwards for TEC. So whatever is needed, just let me know.
Great.
1 hour in advance, and that's fine for me.
Great. So what else did I want to say about orientation? Oh, right. So for those folks who will be able to lead orientation, like you or Manu or Nate, Anna Marie is quite good at that. Also, she's on vacation right now. Just remembering that it really is orientation and not simply an AMA. We found over the course of the last 6 months or so, that really we do need the space for people to come in who can just sit back and be like, okay, tell me all about it. That they don't necessarily have a question, or they have a zillion questions, but maybe they don't know how to pose them even, or they are reluctant to, this kind of thing. So as long as you come in there and you're ready to be like, here's the TEC, and then of course you learn about them, and then they feel comfortable enough to ask questions. Go ahead. Yeah, please.
Oh no, I just feel that there is only one thing on the orientation missing, and there is the timeline where we are right now and what's coming. Because I feel that's the only thing that people are like, oh yeah, but then what's going on right now?
Great.
That's the only thing I feel that it's missing from the notes that you share with me.
Okay. That's great. Go ahead.
I had a question. So I think Comms has been working on taking TEC Lounge to other communities or something like that, right? I think there were a few lounges that took place on Metagame and OneHive. So is that something that we'd be carrying forward, or is that something that Comms would be forward? And how is that related to the lounge that we're hosting? I mean, it could be great if you could integrate all of this, because I think there's a lot of people in different communities that are cross connected. We could probably just host one call for a lounge and everyone can join or something like that.
Exactly. So the idea for having the call on Friday started with the fact that Metagame, OneHive, all of them have their social hangout on Fridays. So we could sync with them eventually and have these kind of crypto social Fridays across communities. Like you can, that's a midterm goal, to sort of like cross over, and you just leave one server and you go to the other one. It's the same people and you keep hanging out and blah, blah, blah. That's one point. The second point, we have tomorrow a call to do the next launch with Shui, which will be for long tail financial, which is also YGG project. And it is to go to your communities and do the same launch. Down the road, the idea of the launches is to bring updates or to bring the TC community to other communities, and that it feels very similar to what people will find when they join our TC launch on Fridays. So the idea is to have this kind of narrative that it's coherent. So we are doing that. We are going to change, because we have TC launch called 6 p.m. same time of orientation. We will change that and change it to a comms workshop dedicated for scouts, meaning that in the case of comms takes more care about the strategy of the launches, and then we deploy that strategy into the other communities. So Communitas will take care of welcoming or assisting on reaching the launches, other communities. So we will be integrated, but we won't have a call dedicated for scouts as it was before, because it doesn't make sense. It's more of a workshop of, okay, what is the next community we will target? Okay, this is the community. Okay, who from Communitas can join that day? Oh, this person can join. So when that people come from that community, let's say Metagame, someone from our working group is already aware of that, and someone from our working group can receive them and remember what they will talk about or remember them from the call. So it's cohesiveness. So for now, the first one is long tail financial. Down the road, probably next week, we will start with the people from the highlights, from the community call highlights, and we will like sort of reconnect with them to outreach their communities too. If that answers your question, bye.
Yeah, that answers. Thanks.
Did you call that Crypto Social Fridays? Is that what you said? Did I get that right? Okay.
Yeah, I just made up that name.
Cool. Okay, great. Okay, so let's see. Our last item on the agenda is just this idea of paying some attention to the workspace coordination for contributors on ZenHub. So some time ago, Tam and I developed a template for contributors, and it would be great if we could sort of get somebody on the project of, and maybe this will come into play when we get the bot ironed out, as Manu was suggesting, with this idea of aligning a new contributor with an issue. So it would be really great if we could sort of work on that a little bit, or keep that in the back of our minds of how we'll be able to implement that and direct new contributors toward the workspace coordination to be able to jump on issues without much difficulty. One of the things that will help that is that she's creating a tutorial. But there's probably some other ideas y'all might have about that, how we can better link folks. I think right now, prior to, well, maybe it's not prior. I don't know. Should I leave that open? Does anybody want to say anything about that? Manu, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, not now.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Does ZenHub require like permissions integration of some sort, or to be joined into the organization? Or because I'd like to look over that, because I'm trying to learn about the bots as well.
Yeah, great. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, obviously, you need the coordination. The workspace is open,
okay.
But you do need a GitHub account.
Yeah.
So
okay.
yeah. So yeah, it should. So let's see. Let's let me. Is your handle? Is it the same? Is your account your Reapacheap one, or is it something else?
No, it's CSGGENE3. It's the same as my Twitter.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt. I have to leave now.
Okay.
But thank you everyone for joining this call. I will see you all later.
All right, that's quick. See you, Edo. Bye. Well, I think that we can probably also wrap it up a few minutes early. We've gone over everything. So just to recap our to-do items, I'm going to check today quickly, if possible, for you, Mano, to see if we can get this. I'm super eager to get these ideas moving. So I'm just going to see if Nick is around and if there's any way to sync that up. And okay, this is great. We'll be moving forward with the bot and the spreadsheet. And I'm going to check out ZenHub, link you up with that, Jean. And I guess we'll see y'all later. Thanks for everybody for coming.
I had
Yes. Wait, question.